Imagine being held captive for more than 20 years, then while you sit there and realize that no one is coming to save you, you set the house on fire and you're finally free. That's exactly what happened to now a 32-year-old man who was held captive in his room since the age 11. When he was found by police, he was extremely malnourished, weighing only 68 pounds, which is insane for a 32-year-old. It was said that at one point he attended school like a normal kid, but then he was pulled out and he was homeschooled, but eventually he just never left the house again. So on February 17th at approximately 8:42 p.m., 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan called police and said that her house was on fire. When police arrived, they found a 32-year-old man in horrible living conditions, and he told police that he intentionally set his bedroom on fire because he's been held captive since he was 11 and wanted to be free. He then said that his father, who died a year ago, let him out of the room for longer periods of time, but after his death, it was just him and his stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan. He told police that DSF visited the home when he was a child after people were concerned over his weight and that he was stealing food and eating things out of the garbage. But at the time when DSF spoke to him, he said that he was forced to say that everything was fine because his stepmom and father threatened to not feed him. Kimberly was arrested, but she pleaded not guilty, and her defense as of right now is that she has nothing to do with this and it was all her husband who passed away. Now, the worst part, which really pissed me off, is that this woman was released on bail. She's wearing an ankle monitor, but she's out. She's walking free after this man endured so much abuse for the last 20 years.
The doctor once told me that half of medicine is made up and we don't know which half, okay? We know a lot about our human bodies, but we don't know everything. For example, if you have inflammatory bowel disease, you are much more likely to develop dementia, comorbid anxiety, and depression, but we don't know why, which is crazy because in 100 years from now, like, they're gonna look at us and be like, huh, they didn't know digestion affected the brain. That's crazy. We also know that nobody born blind has ever developed schizophrenia. We just don't know why. Hell, I had a dermatologist tell me that we still don't know what causes an itch, and this is why it's so hard for people to find a remedy for like itchy skin. I'll do you one better, okay? Anesthesiologists have admitted that they don't know why the principal agent in anesthesia even works, and it said that whoever does figure this out is gonna win a Nobel Prize. We have no answer for how our body knows if it's gonna be a fart or a shit. Right? And like sometimes it makes a mistake, but like most of the time we know, but we don't know why. This is a fun one for any pregnant people out there. OBGYNs don't know what causes labor. They know the mechanics, they know the physiology, but they don't know what makes the average uterus just be like, all right, it's go time.
These are normal looking photos with very disturbing backstories, part 1. This seems to be a normal class picture that anyone would take at their school. But if you look closely, you notice something a little out of the ordinary. You see, if you look close enough in the top left corner, you will notice classmates Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris holding up fake guns. But little did people know, these two would move on to commit the mass school shooting of Columbine High School in 1999. This event began to unravel as these two 12th grade students shot up their school, killing 13 people and wounding 20 before turning the gun on themselves and killing themselves in the school library. Police later found a 20-pound propane tank that they set to detonate and go off inside the building to blow it up, but since the bomb didn't work, they started the killing spree themselves. Nothing but sadness and sorrow filled the air that day as students mourned the loss of their fellow classmates and teachers, and Columbine was considered the worst school shooting at the time and still goes down in history till this day.
Top 4 scariest places in the ocean. Number 1, Taylor Glacier, Antarctica. This looks like a geological crime scene, however, what it actually is extremely salty, iron-rich water that is leaking from a glacier. Now, this water is so salty that it refuses to freeze, and it's so rich in iron that it looks like blood. 2, the Wall in St. Croix. This is a giant drop-off less than 400 meters away from the shoreline, and basically, this is a 2-mile drop down to the abyss at the bottom of the ocean, so this is absolutely horrifying and nowhere I'd want to be. Number 3, the Turtle Tomb. Basically, this is a set of underwater caves that are filled with countless sea turtle skeletons and even dolphin remains from animals that have gotten lost and trapped in these caves and run out of oxygen. It is really horrifying. Number 4, the Corrie Vrecken Maelstrom. Basically, this is a permanent whirlpool off the coast of Scotland that can get to over 650 feet deep and is extremely powerful and horrifying. Whirlpools are scary. I'm sorry, this is horrifying. I don't like it.
He lined all 3 of his sons up, read the Bible to them, and then shot them all execution style right in front of their own mother. He broke down in tears after his wife said him behind bars for life will be the best thing for our family going forward. The only 2 people who lived after this ordeal was his wife and then his stepdaughter. All 3 of his sons are dead. It should be noted all the boys tried to escape. They knew what was going on. However, he got them, hunted them back down, brought them back to the house, and lined them up again to shoot them. The mother tried to stop him from killing the boys. However, she got injured in the process. Apparently, he had planned executing them for months, and after the execution, he walked calmly to the porch and sat down with his rifle next to him, waiting for police to come and arrive. The mother called the police, and the stepdaughter ran to a neighbor's house and said, "Help, my dad is killing people." When the police got there, the body cam footage was very chilling. He was smiling in it. He then said, "I ain't gonna hurt nobody." The police said, "You have the right to remain silent, so use it." Strangely enough, during his interview, he said, "The Bible told me to kill my firstborn, my secondborn, and my thirdborn. It also said to kill my wife, but I didn't kill my wife." The motive was really unclear on why he even did this. What are your opinions on this story?
These are the craziest things ever discovered underground. In July 2005, when the sand from the Sahara Desert began to fly with the wind, they found the bones of a 40-million-year-old whale. It was always theorized that the Sahara Desert used to be a sea, and this pretty much confirmed it. But the most shocking thing was that some of these whales even had the bones of feet. And this shows how land-based animals actually evolved to live in the ocean. In 2018, a farmer named James was digging to install a drainage pipe in his yard. That's when he found the skull of a woolly mammoth which was 14,000 years old. Archaeologists said that humans hunted it and later buried it right in this field. Finally, in 2015 in Argentina, Jose Antonio wanted to take a breath of fresh air by this lake. That's when he found a large round object in the water. This was the shell of an armadillo that was 10,000 years old. According to the shell, armadillos at the time would grow to around 11 feet. And after this discovery, many other giant armadillo shells began mysteriously appearing around
Imagine if Big Bird guest starred on Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. That is what this Jurassic paralysis pigeon's packing. This is a shoebill stork, although don't let names fool you. This cursed muppet is more pelican than stork. They're more likely to take children than deliver them, and in a few seconds, I will address that. Flexing an 8-foot wingspan and up to 5 feet tall, this dinosaur in down can look some of y'all in the eye. That blunt force object is how they get their name and nutrients, because they hunt by decapitating prey with that shoebill. Also, their scientific name is Balaeniceps rex, or B-Rex, and prey can range from lungfish and catfish to snakes, and they're a threat to the minor safety of crocodiles. They inflict more than physical damage with that beak, because when they clap their bills together, a veteran goes fetal. Shoebills usually keep it silent, but during nesting season they'll tend to speak up, so when duty calls, they give call of duty. Speaking of which, shoebills have 2 chicks with the intention of caring for one. That second baby is a backup plan. That plan gets cancelled once the bigger shoebill beats, bludgeons, and bullies the weaker one into oblivion, while the parents encourage it by only feeding the stronger one. Plenty of animals do this, but doesn't make the Jurassic reject look any better. The weird thing about this bird is that they're completely friendly to humans, and they're one of the few birds where you can walk right up to their nest, and unless you're being a menace, they will tolerate your presence. Some shoebills even get habituated to people and act like trained dogs. In fact, this is Sushi the shoebill, and as long as you bow in front of her, the harmless hippogriff will vibe with you. And since bowing's close to how married shoebills greet each other at the nest, she basically considers humans her family. Shoebills are alright.
I hope y'all live your life well without seeing my child, Gabrielle Blair. You lived well without seeing them throughout their whole life, so live well now. But you ain't got nothing to say to me for what I did for my child, period.
As a mother, one of your primary responsibilities was to protect your kids. And in that respect, you failed in the worst possible way. There's nothing that can be done at this point to change what happened.
True, that's why I'm asking for life.
They lived in terrible fear of you. And I find that just so sad in this case. You imposed the death penalty on your own children.
I did.
You're therefore sentenced to the Michigan Department of Corrections for the rest of your life without the possibility of parole, meaning, of course, that you will never get out. You will receive, yes. You will receive credit for 115 days.
On February 15, 2018, the defendant, Pearl Cynthia Fernandez, entered a plea to murder in the first degree and further admitted the special circumstance of intentional murder by torture. Accordingly, it is the judgment and sentence of this court that the defendant shall be sentenced to a term of life in prison without the possibility of parole for the underlying murder charge.
I'm sorry to my children, and I want them to know that I love them. And I hope one day they will forgive me. And I hope one day they would come to me. I wish I could have saved Gable.
Urban Legends That Ended Up Being Real, Part 23. Tombstone Thunderbird. It is said to be spotted in Tombstone, Arizona. It's a huge bird with a wingspan that stretches over 20 feet long, and it comes out during storms. The most well-known account comes from 1890 when two ranchers in Tombstone claimed to have encountered and killed a creature matching the Thunderbird's description. The massive bird attacked their livestock, forcing them to shoot it down. They described it as having leathery bat-like wings and looked more like a dinosaur than a bird. The men dragged the bird back to town, where a photograph of them standing with the massive creature was taken. This photo has become one of the greatest mysteries of the legend. And in 1977, a family in Lawndale, Illinois claimed that a Thunderbird attacked their young son while he was out playing in the yard. The bird tried to carry the boy away before being scared off by the family. And the most recent sighting comes from 2020 when a group of campers in the forests of Pennsylvania claimed to see a shadow pass over their campsite, blocking out the moonlight. But when they looked up, they described a bird so large it seemed to glide silently across the sky, and its wings created a whooshing sound as it disappeared into darkness.
If you hear bones clinking behind you at night, you better run. The Gashidokuru are a yokai from Japanese folklore dating back 1,000 years. They are described as malevolent skeletal giants that can be as big as 15 times the size of a human. It's said that these giants wander around in the middle of the darkest nights, and if they see a human, they'll sneak up behind them. The last thing the victim will hear is the clinking of bones and the chattering of teeth before the Gashidokuru reaches down with its skeleton hands to crush them and bite off their head to drink their blood. According to the folklore, these things are created when people died from war and famine and didn't receive a proper burial. Unable to move on, their souls become angry ghosts, and when hundreds of them gather together, their hatred ferments and twists into this supernatural force, bringing the bones of the deceased together into this gigantic and horrific form. They're thought to be indestructible, so the only way to ward them off is with a Shinto charm. But what do you think of the Gashidokuru? Make sure to leave a comment and like and follow this channel for more Fortean content.
Orcas are black Air Force bully Oreos, and I'm gonna tell you why. This video was taken in Mexico where a gang of zebras jumped a stingray, slapping the life points out of it for over 90 minutes, but the real disrespect was that when it was over, they didn't eat it, they just let the soul evacuated placemats sink to the abyss. And here's why. Orcas aren't just smart, they have whole cultures, different accents, and even trends that they follow. They also have the most creative ways of turning prey past tense, and they learn it from the elders in their pod. That's how a desaturated roid dolphin can weaponize physics against a seal. So what they'll do is, the older members, usually the grandmother, will mollywop a victim. We're talking get them all the way down to near 0 HP. And that's when they bring the children in. And that's how they teach little orcalets how to take a life without risking their own. It's why they'll send a seal to the Air Force before they let their kids get their practice in. And why Mama Orca will T-bone a great white before she teaches them how to use tonic immobility against them. It's not evil in theory, diabolical in practice. There was one Mama Orca that not only memorized the exact place and time of year elephant seals keep their pups in shallow nursery pools, she waited the exact moment the shallow water was high enough for her to pull up and pup nap a seal. She kept him alive and dragged him out into the ocean to the the rest of her family, where they turned him into a life lesson. A lesson that lasted hours, and the seal was alive for almost all of it. If that sounds cruel, just remember, if they didn't learn what and what not to eat from their parents, there'd be a lot more stories of this plus-size oppression porpoise packing up people. On Pod, the more you know.
Now, the photo you see behind me is from a leaked case file with two people who were only ever identified as Chester and Kellyanne M. They're a very normal couple. They were married in 2012, but the incident reports about their home started coming in as early as 2015. There's like no strange history about this place. The only thing we know are those incident reports about the HVAC system. But the reason any of it's relevant links back to this picture that they took during the time of their complaints. See, the incident reports have been about the HVAC system, the vent system, and specifically things heard and seen in the crawl spaces. After the couple had both gone missing in early 2016, this was a photo that was recovered, and if you look to the background, you'll see what's wrong. From the picture they took, although it's inconclusive, many people believe this is a person who was hiding in their crawl space before they went missing. Enhanced photos only furthered suspicion.
Four aquatic bugs way scarier than murder hornets. Number 1, the giant water bug. These guys are massive. They can get to almost 5 inches long, and they eat everything from ducklings, frogs, fish, lizards, snakes. Everything's on the menu, and these guys are fearless. With giant pincers and a terrifyingly sharp proboscis, they love to inject stomach acid into their victims, completely melt them, and drink them like soup. 2, the diving bell spider, because of course there are spiders underwater as well. There's nowhere to escape from these creepy crawlies. Now, these guys are absolutely amazing innovators. They can actually store water in bubbles, and they can survive for up to a day without having to come back to the surface to get more water, and then get to almost an inch long. 3 is the giant Dobson fly. These guys can get to over 6 inches long. They are absolutely massive. They have a really painful bite, but they're actually not aggressive at all. And the crazy thing is they live as larvae for most of their life, and they're only an adult, full-fledged form for a couple of days to mate and then die. Number 4, the water scorpion. Now these guys can get to about 4 inches long, and they're not actually scorpions. They're something called a true bug, and this really long tail-looking thing is basically a straw to allow them to breathe air while they live underwater, which is kind of crazy.
This man's face may be more familiar to you, as by now many both locally and internationally are aware of his horrific actions. Here's the final update in his case, as Hugo Ferreira appeared in court today for his sentencing. If you're not aware of the case and you have the stomach for it, I've linked the full video where I discuss it in detail down below. Today in the Gauteng High Court, Hugo Ferreira was handed down 2 life terms for the and murder of his 8-day-old baby. Wearing shorts, flip-flops, and a black hoodie, he did not flinch as his disturbing actions of that day were recounted in court. During the sentencing process, it was also evident that Hugo had not disclosed the true extent of the injuries against the 8-day-old infant. The court ultimately found that Hugo showed no remorse, and the murder was premeditated. During the pre-sentence report, he had also stated how he wanted to and would take the life of baby Caitlin's mother if he wasn't incarcerated. Threats that clearly indicated that not only did he lack remorse, but he stands a low chance of rehabilitation. And so we close that sordid saga. Unfortunately though, there are many more out there who will likely suffer the very same fate. It's time for a change. It's time for our government to declare gender-based violence a national disaster. If you haven't already, please sign the official Women for Change petition, which will be handed over on the 11th of April at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. You know the drill. Keep your eyes on my feed, and I'll be sure to keep you in the loop. Until the next one, Bella out.
For more than 120 years, people believe that there is something very wrong with this lighthouse. Creepy story from the early 20th century, actually the year 1900. This lighthouse is constructed, and there are 3 lighthouse keepers who were appointed to it among the first crew. All 3 of the men were very experienced. Some of them were principal keepers. Some of them had like upwards of 20 plus years of experience. All 3 go missing on the night of December 15th. It's like one ship that was a witness who saw somewhere between the 9 to 10 p.m. window the light of the lighthouse go out, which would have been extremely unusual. I mean, that is a safety feature. 26, when the relief ship got to the lighthouse and discovered the men were gone, not only were they gone, there were strange things at the lighthouse. Clothing was left, meals were half finished and on the tables, and all of the men were gone, and mysteriously all of the clocks seem to have stopped at 8:45 p.m. To this day, nobody really knows what happened to the men. And if you're looking for more eerie stories, check out my podcast.
Big Ben is going digital. Let me explain. So we all know the massive London clock tower, the Big Ben, right? Well, today I woke up and saw news saying they are going to make some redesigns to the Big Ben. And the main reason why they're going to make a redesign is because people keep complaining over and over, saying it shouldn't even be there because they can't read those types of clocks anymore. This is honestly just wild. And they claimed just in a couple weeks, they will be changing the clock from this style to a digital style, so everybody can read the clock finally. Oh my goodness. And instead of the chimes it usually makes, it will make this sound now every hour. Wait, am I getting a call? Wait, hold on guys. Hello? Oh, my bad, I forgot to tell them. Send this to a friend to waste their time.
I am the firstborn son of Chester Bennington, and over the last 6 years I've gone from a firm supporter of his suicide to someone who's absolutely convinced that he did not take his own life.
So Chester Bennington, the lead singer of the band Linkin Park, died on July 20th, 2017. And according to all official reports, he ended his own life. Ever since I first made a video about Chester Bennington's death, I've had thousands of people commenting that he didn't take his own life. And I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that he was possibly working on a sex trafficking documentary. But I've never been able to find any concrete evidence to point that that was the case. However, on May 18th, 2017, about 2 months before Chester Bennington died, Chris Cornell was found dead in his hotel room. Chris Cornell being the lead singer of the band Soundgarden, who was a very close friend of Chester Bennington's. But here's where it gets a little interesting. Apparently there were injuries on the back of Chris Cornell's head that were discovered by paramedics, but injuries that were not written down on the official autopsy report. And even Chris Cornell's own widow doesn't believe he took his own life. This quote was taken from a Billboard article published in 2018. They say Vicky Cornell has been adamant that she didn't believe her husband would take his life. She also says you can clearly see a gash or at least a visible big bald spot in pictures and video footage, referring to the state that they found Chris Cornell's body in. And with Chester's own son coming out and saying he believes his dad was murdered, I'm excited to see what information he's going to unveil. People have been speculating for years on the deaths of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, and there's a very, very large group of individuals who believe that they were murdered. And admittedly, there are some things about both stories that don't necessarily make sense at face value. But like I said, I'm really interested to hear if Chester Bennington's son has any new information to unveil, because it definitely, no matter what, would help us all, I think, understand what happened here just a little bit better.
Y'all, there was a search underway today going on right now in the Asha Degree case. Y'all, this is huge. So as most of y'all know, there has been a lot of recent updates made in the Asha Degree case, the early 2000s case of a missing little girl that went out allegedly and walked on the highway not too far away from her home and was last seen walking the opposite direction from traffic. Someone spotted her and she ran off into the woods. Now, her backpack was found with a shirt that is to this day unidentified by her family or anyone that she knew. Now, this shirt connected police to the Deadmans. Now, this is how I want y'all to follow along. The Deadmans is a family, and I believe they owned a nursing home. The father and the mother owned a nursing home. And there was 2 teenage daughters that grew up there and, lived around that area. That's who they believe might have had something to do with Asha Degree's disappearance. So today they did a major search at an abandoned building that was owned by the Deadmans. That's currently owned by the bank. And that's who let them do the search. All these years they couldn't search this area because the Deadmans were the one who owned it. Now this is the Deadmans right here. I want you got to pay attention, you guys. These are the blonde one right here is the one who was texting her husband, her ex-husband or whatever. She was texting him about Asha Degree and what happened to them. She was telling people are going to find out. She was like, oh, people are going to find out what happened to Asha Degree. Or she said the name Asha. So that proved that she or someone in the family knows something that happened to Asha Degree the night 2001 where she disappeared. This is the building right here. Like I said, we don't know what they found or what they're doing, but we do know that this is huge because, man, this case is so old. And to see this in my lifetime is just, I can't imagine what the family is feeling. A lot of people have blamed the family. I've always known the family was innocent, but the fact that people have blamed the family breaks my heart. And the whole time it was allegedly this family that has something to do with Asha Degree's disappearance.
This is one of the most disgusting and evil cases I've ever heard. In February of 2013 in the Bronx, New York, a man was walking his dog at around 4 a.m. when his dog began to sniff around and led the man to a pile of trash bags that were left on the curb. As the man got closer, he realized that there was an awful smell coming from the bags that were sitting on the curb. So he decided to investigate, and lo and behold, he discovered that the bags were full of dismembered body parts. The man then decided to call the police, and after further investigation, the police found multiple different bags full of more dismembered body parts scattered across the city. It would then be discovered that the dismembered body parts would belong to a 45-year-old at-home caregiver by the name of Tanya Bird. Her body parts were placed in multiple heavy-duty trash bags containing everything from her torso to her shoulders to even her head. But guys, if only that was the worst part. You see, police then moved on to contact Tanya's son, Basid McLean, in which he responded that he believed that his mom's abusive ex-boyfriend was the one behind the killing of his mother. But little did the police know that that was not the case. As part of the investigation, police decided to go through Basid McLean's phone to see if he had any connection with his mom's murder. And lo and behold, they discovered a picture of McLean smiling in a selfie while holding his mom's decapitated head in his left hand. Yes, this is the picture of McLean holding his mom's decapitated head like it's a trophy, and of course it's blurred because we're not going to show the actual picture on here. After this, though, he was actually sentenced to 25 years in prison, but wait, it gets crazier. You see, years prior, before he was arrested, Basid McLean was actually married to a woman named Vera McLean, in which him and her had a 4-year-old son together. And about a year into McLean's prison sentence, he gets a call while in jail that his ex-wife, Vera McLean, is being charged with murder after beating their 4-year-old son to death with a broomstick. She was then sentenced to 17 years in prison. So one of them killed their mother, dismembered her body, and then flaunted her head in a selfie, and the other one beat their son to death with a broomstick. That's a pretty twisted couple, if you ask me.